So I should probably start this video with a language warning, because the one book I read this month has a very colourful title. Welcome back to my channel, and this is the May recap for my Monochromatic Year Project Pan. Just a quick reminder, this project was created by KaliFab, details down in the description box below, and was originally designed as a makeup panning project, but I am doing it as a book edition. So May's colour was orange, and unfortunately I was only able to read one book in May, which was an audio book. So let's get started discussing the book I did manage to read, and then we will move on to a bit of an information about June. So the book I read in May was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, a counterintuitive approach to living a good life by Mark Manson. So this book would be considered a self-help book, and for those who have read it, it does have a lot of swear words. But I definitely really enjoyed this book. I like Mark's approach to the idea of self-help books, and I enjoyed his discussions regarding values and some other things. I guess the question should be, how much should I say about this book? I guess I'm going to start by saying that I like the fact that it has a very colourful title. I like the fact that it's in your face and pushes his ideas to the forefront in the first instance. I also like the fact that the book goes on to say that obviously you have to give some fucks, that, you know, the whole purpose of life, you can't go through your whole life and care about nothing, but you have to be more responsible and questioning on what you are going to care about, what you are going to put your value in. I enjoyed the discussions of value and how he views value and what we value as people. We as people, we put our values into things, even sometimes without realizing it. You might not think that you value X, but you end up valuing X. So a concept that he used was that if you put your value into being the best at X, unless you become the best of that, you are never going to feel like you succeeded. Though you may be the second best, and that in itself is a great triumph, but if you haven't got value in being as good as you can be, for example, then you are never going to feel like you succeeded. And I think that that is an important concept. In my own personal life, I put a value on receiving credits in my university degree. So I wanted to get nothing lower than a credit, which when I obviously did not receive a credit and I got a pass instead, I was devastated. And that is rather silly, because a pass is still a pass. But I cried about it. And I think that if I hadn't then reassessed my value and gone, okay, is it actually worth me having the value in receiving nothing lower than a credit? Why have I put this value on myself? And there was no reason for me putting that value on myself. This was just something that I did to myself. There was no forward-going reason for why I wanted nothing but credits. It wasn't for any form of credit score or anything like that. It was just my own personal thing I put on myself, which if I had not reassessed that value and altered it, essentially, I would have felt like I didn't succeed, which I did feel in the moment when I first received a pass. And that, I think, is a very important thing to learn, because people put values on things that which aren't necessarily worth the value that we are passing on them. I think of that in when he is talking about his friend of his who is engaged to get married to a very lovely person who is supposedly smart, intelligent, kind to his fiance, and there is nothing bad about this person, and he makes his fiance happy. Now, the fiance's brother is not happy with the engagement. In fact, tells that his sister that she could do better. So when the sister questions him and says, well, what's your problem with my fiance? The brother has no reasons. There is no reasons from his point of view. He just thinks that she could do better. Now, that is obviously causing tension between the relationship between the sister and the brother, but also the fiance and the brother, and also probably the fiance and the two fiancés. Now, that comes to a point where that relationship between the sister and brother may deteriorate because the brother refuses to step back from his idea of this guy is not good enough for his sister. Now, he obviously is not aware of what value he has in regards to that. If he makes a comment like, I don't know why, I don't have a problem with him, he's fine, I just think you could do better. So somewhere he has that value within it that means that this person is not good enough for his sister. Now, in the end, that value is actually going to be detrimental to his relationship to his sister. So he really has to figure out what he values more, whether he values his relationship with his sister or he values whatever it is that is causing him to think that this person is not good enough for his sister. For you to do that, for him to do that, and for us to do such a thing when we are put in that same situation, that means us looking at a value that we have and going, actually, that value is not worth basically the fucks that we are putting into it. So that is a very hard thing for us to do, because assessing your values, which essentially make up our core personality, our core being, values affect everything we do. For you to assess your values and say, actually, that value I have is wrong, I need to assess it, I need to consider that I am wrong in this situation and review what better value I could have, is something that we have a lot of trouble with. Understandably, because people do not want to admit when they are wrong. People do not want to be the bad guy, which I think is very telling of the situation that America and the world is in at this current point. But this book obviously in itself is not about those topics. It does, I think, it does connect in a certain way that people do not want to admit that their values or their actions are wrong, because people do not want to be wrong. They do not want to be the bad guy. So that can be something very hard for people to overcome and for people to reassess, for them to go, okay, this value that I've had is not right. So I need to reassess my values and figure out what is actually a good value, which can be very difficult and very hard, like I have said. So I definitely enjoyed this book. I would recommend it to anyone to read, and I'm actually thinking of reading his second book, which I think is called something to do with hope, and has a blue cover, so that ship's already sailed for this year's of monochromatic reading. But that is something I'm looking to read in the future. And like I said, I would definitely recommend this book to anyone who does, one, enjoys self-help, two, would like to know more about assessing their own personal values and how that affects their life. Because like Mark says at one point, we give away so many fucks that we do not have any left for ourselves. So, yeah, that was the one book I managed to get through this month, the month of May, and I have actually used a lot of his words and have taken on a lot of information from that, and am using that in my own personal life. I would very much like to hear if any of you have read that book and what your thoughts are on it, because I know it can be very not controversial, probably is not the correct term, but it can be quite a you're with it or you're against it. It's quite polarizing, would probably be the best way to say it. So yeah, I would definitely love to hear what you thought of the book and whether you found any of the information held within it helpful. Now, I would like to say that I did begin to read another book last month, which was actually this book, The Girl with No Name, by Marina Chapman. And as you can see, it has orange writing on it. However, if you can tell from my makeshift bookmark, I have not actually finished this book. So, luckily for me, there is also quite a bit of green on this title, on this cover, sorry, considering that the majority of the book is set within the jungle. So I will be including this one in my June book list. So moving, I guess, on to June. If you couldn't tell, June's colour is green. And so far I have got over 3/4 of the way through that book that I just showed you, but otherwise I have not yet started reading any books for June. So hopefully I'm going to have at least one book for June. I will say that I have had a massive decrease in my reading since the start of year, and I do wonder if some of that is because I am studying. I am working towards a post-grad diploma in information management, so I do wonder if me using a lot of the time for reading, etc., a lot of my spare time goes towards that during term. I'm wondering if that has affected my reading, which I would definitely say yes, it has, but it's also affected my filming, my Instagram, my time that I use to play Sims, my time I spend with friends. But I guess that is just the way that these things obviously work out, because in life you only have a limited amount of hours in the day, and sometimes those hours can be wasted, which is quite surprising when you sit down and do things like figure out the amount of time that something actually takes you to how much time you actually have. You can really end up thinking, wow, how much time do I use doing nothing? But that is another story for another day. So that is all I have for you today in this recap. So I'm Verity. That was the May recap for the Monochromatic Year Project Pam. And now to the outro.